Welcome to True Crime Audio Pod, where we unravel the threads of the most disturbing true crime stories. Today's story delves into the dark and intricate saga of Evelyn Dick, a name that resonates with intrigue and mystery in Canadian criminal history. We embark on a journey through a labyrinth of sensational trials, shocking discoveries, and legal battles that gripped the nation. This tale is not just about crime and punishment, it's a complex narrative about human nature, societal reactions, and the enigmatic character of a woman at its center. As we unravel the layers of Evelyn Dick's life, we confront questions of guilt, morality, and the elusive nature of truth. On the morning of March 6, 1946, Ash Wednesday, at approximately 9:30 a.m., John Dick, a Hamilton Street Railway (HSR) employee, and his cousin's wife, encamerer, embarked on a journey from Gertrude Street in Hamilton, boarding the King streetcar to head uptown. John, a boarder with the camerers, was decked in his HSR uniform, complete with a gray overcoat and a conductor's cap, adorned with brass buttons. His ensemble also included a blue and white pinstripe shirt, a brown tie, a blue wool sweater, and black Oxfords, the standard HSR footwear. Carrying a small black leather satchel containing his driver's equipment, John was scheduled for a later shift starting at 4 p.m., but had important matters to attend to before then. John's demeanor was visibly anxious, particularly about a planned meeting with his estranged wife, Evelyn, a woman 14 years his junior. The couple's marriage, which had only lasted 2 months of their 5-month union, was troubled, and John had moved in with his cousin, Alex Camerer, in early February. John's mood had notably shifted. He was despondent, losing weight and appetite, a change from his usually good-natured disposition. That same day, John visited the HSR office, where he spoke with Inspector William Mottram and later Supervisor Harvey Walters. He left his conductor's cap and satchel at the office, indicating he would return. Meanwhile, Evelyn, who lived at 32 Carrick Avenue with her daughter, mother, and a boarder, was preparing to leave the house around 1:30 p.m. in a stylish gray fur coat and black hat, mentioning she had errands to run and would return by 5 p.m. Evelyn then visited William Landag, owner of Grafton Garage, to borrow a black Packard sedan she had once owned and sold to Landag. She promised to return the car by 5 p.m., as it was Landag's personal vehicle. Notably, the car had 2 outboard motors on the back seat. Later that afternoon, John Dick, seeking a meal at the Windsor Hotel dining room, managed to get a bowl of soup and a sandwich despite the kitchen being closed, thanks to the leniency of the hotel owner, Joseph Fichot. Around the same time, Detective George Lawson of the Hamilton Police observed some local characters downtown, including a brief interaction with ticket seller Francis. That evening, Evelyn faced challenges trying to park the Packard in her garage, which was cluttered with lumber. Her mother, Alexandra McLean, objected to the car's presence and an argument ensued. Evelyn eventually drove the car away, returning later in the evening. Bill Landag, upon retrieving the Packard from Evelyn, noticed it was muddy and the right running board was damaged. He discovered blood in the car, which he initially attributed to Evelyn's note explaining her daughter's injury. However, the severity of the car's condition suggested something more troubling. These events unfolded amidst the backdrop of ordinary life in Hamilton, yet hinted at underlying tensions and mysteries in the lives of John and Evelyn Dick. On Thursday, March 7th, Alexander and encamerer began their day with a sense of normalcy, despite John Dick not returning home the previous night. They assumed he might have stayed at the Hamilton Street Railway (HSR) offices, as he had done before, or possibly reconciled with his wife, Evelyn. They recalled a past incident where John had booked a room at the Royal Connaught Hotel for a reconciliation attempt with Evelyn, but she had only spent an afternoon with him. Meanwhile, city workers William Rushton and George Mehark discovered a blood-stained shirt on Mountain Boulevard. The shirt, found in a condition suggesting a violent incident, prompted speculation of an accident, but no other evidence was found nearby. At the Grafton garage, William Landig and Alex Fielda examined 2 outboard motors stored in the back seat of Landig's Packard, the car Evelyn had borrowed. During this inspection, they found a blood-stained blue wool sweater, adding to the mysterious circumstances surrounding the vehicle. On Friday, March 8th, Alexandra McLean, Evelyn's mother, took her granddaughter Heather for a walk, hoping to see John Dick, who usually delighted Heather by sounding the streetcar's gong. However, John was not on his usual route, leading to disappointment. Upon their return, Evelyn coldly remarked that John would not be seen on a streetcar again, alarming her mother with her tone and words. By Saturday, March 9th, concern grew over John's absence. The Camerers reached out to Evelyn, who shockingly mentioned she planned to have John arrested for debts and a lawsuit. She also accused Alex Camerer of owing money to John, a claim he denied. On Sunday, March 10th, Alexandra McLean struggled with the unsettling possibility that John might be dead. Tensions between her and Evelyn had escalated, especially after a recent argument over a car. Evelyn, however, appeared more cheerful than usual. On Tuesday, March 12th, Evelyn visited the Central Police Station, inquiring about John's arrest, suspecting him of embezzling from the HSR. Detective John Freeborn found no record of such an arrest. By Wednesday, March 13th, Evelyn, who typically managed the house's coal furnace, unexpectedly began moving ashes from the basement, spreading them over mud in front of the garage. This unusual activity further added to the mysterious and tense atmosphere surrounding the Dick household. On Saturday, March 16th, a group of young children from Hamilton, including Faith Reed, her brother David, and the Weaver boys, embarked on an outing to Albion Falls. The children, aged between 8 and 12, were part of a close-knit neighborhood group who frequently played together. Their adventure took them to the scenic area of Hamilton Mountain, where they unexpectedly stumbled upon a gruesome discovery. While traversing a clearing near the Silver Spur Riding School, 2 of the Weaver boys, following a brief scuffle, found what they initially thought was a dead pig in the underbrush. Upon closer inspection, the children realized it was a human torso, missing its head, arms, and legs. The terrified children flagged down a passing car, and the driver, after confirming their discovery, stayed with them until the police arrived. The Ontario Provincial Police, including Sergeant Carl Farrow and Constable Leonard Maddock, confirmed that the torso was of a human and noted its condition and location in their reports. They deduced that the body had been thrown with force due to the absence of a blood trail, indicating the killing occurred elsewhere. Photographs were taken, and an ambulance was called to transport the body to the morgue. The body, dressed only in torn underwear, had bullet holes and a significant gash across the stomach. The discovery led the police to conclude that the torso was part of a violent crime. Despite the shock of their discovery, the children continued with their planned picnic, undeterred by the day's events. They even gained a brief moment of local fame, with newspaper coverage and attention at school. This incident echoed a similar case from 1925 when children found a body on Hamilton Mountain, a crime that was never solved. Hamilton, known for its steel mills and active sports scene, also had a history of organized crime, leading to speculation about the torso's identity. One theory was that it could be Rocco Perry, a missing mobster, but police dismissed this due to the physical differences and the state of decomposition expected after 2 years. At this point, the public was unaware of John Dick's disappearance, and his name had not yet been connected to the macabre discovery on Hamilton Mountain. John Dyke, later known as John Dick, had a rich and complex background that intertwined with significant historical events and cultural shifts. Born on May 25, 1906, in Russia, Dyke was a descendant of Dutch Mennonites. This religious group, originating from Holland, had migrated over centuries, first to Silesia in German-speaking Poland, and then to the Russian Ukraine, invited by Catherine the Great. They were known for their agricultural skills, particularly in reclaiming swampland, and their religious beliefs that included pacifism and separation of church and state. Facing growing restrictions and the withdrawal of their privileges in Russia, many Mennonites chose to emigrate to North America in the late 19th century. However, Dick's family remained in Russia until the upheavals following the Russian Revolution forced them to leave. In 1924, Dick, then 18, arrived in Ontario with a group of Mennonites fleeing the communist regime, famine, and instability in their homeland. The Mennonites, including Dick's family, settled in areas around Markham and Kitchener-Waterloo, with some moving to the Vineland/Beamsville region near Hamilton. They integrated into Canadian society, often anglicizing their names in response to anti-German sentiment, particularly during the World Wars. Dick changed his name to John Dick and chose to live in Hamilton, diverging from the traditional Mennonite lifestyle. John Dick worked various jobs, including at Frost Wire and Steel Company and F.W. Fearman, a meatpacking company. In mid-1943, he secured a position as a motorman with the Hamilton Street Railway. His application to HSR indicated that he was responsible for his mother and grandmother, did not consume alcohol, though this was untrue, and was unmarried. Despite his Mennonite roots, Dick adapted to the urban lifestyle of Hamilton, a city known for its labor-intensive industries. He enjoyed socializing, drinking, and was interested in women, though somewhat shy and naive. His personal life included a friendship with Anna Wolski, a widow whom he had known for years. Their relationship evolved, with Wolski proposing marriage twice. Dick initially declined, citing family responsibilities, and later falsely claimed he was already married. He eventually did marry, but not until 2 months after his last conversation with Wolski. Evelyn Dick's upbringing was marked by a turbulent family life and a constant quest for acceptance and social status. Born into a troubled household, her mother Alexandra McLean was ambitious and temperamental, while her father, Donald McLean, was prone to violent mood swings and abusive behavior. Evelyn, an only child, was often caught in the middle of her parents' volatile relationship, which saw numerous separations over their 35-year marriage. Her social skills were stunted due to her mother's overprotectiveness and insistence on isolation from other children. The McLean family's move to Hamilton, Ontario, was driven by financial needs, with Donald taking up a job with Dominion Power and Transmission. Despite the family's modest means, Alexandra aspired for Evelyn to associate with Hamilton's elite, leading to her enrollment in the prestigious Loretto Academy. Unbeknownst to many, Donald was embezzling significant amounts from the Hamilton Street Railway, which funded Evelyn's education and lavish lifestyle. Evelyn's time at Loretto Academy was characterized by her attempts to buy friendship and acceptance through extravagant gifts and gestures. Her efforts, however, often led to her being avoided by her peers. Despite her mother's ambitions, Evelyn struggled to fit in with the affluent circles due to her background and upbringing. By the time she graduated from high school, Evelyn had become known for her relationships with various men, including those from prominent families in Hamilton. She was rumored to have had multiple pregnancies, leading to abortions, and even gave birth to a daughter in 1942, whom she named Heather Maria White, claiming a fictitious husband, Norman White. In 1944, Evelyn gave birth to a boy, Peter David White, under similar pretenses. After a brief stay at the hospital, she left without her son, claiming he was taken for adoption by the Children's Aid Society. She then moved into an upscale apartment on James Street South, which she used as a private space for entertaining male friends, while continuing to live with her parents. Evelyn's life, marked by deception, financial dependence on her father's illicit gains, and her struggles with personal relationships, painted a picture of a woman deeply affected by her dysfunctional family dynamics and societal pressures. William Bill Bohozuk, a former altar boy and an accomplished oarsman, epitomized the young working-class men of his era who were drawn to factory jobs for their financial security and immediate benefits. In June 1940, with the implementation of the National Resources Mobilization Act, which mobilized citizens for the war effort, Bohozuk secured a job at Dominion Foundry in Hamilton, Ontario, avoiding military conscription due to his employment in a war-essential industry. Living with his family, Bohozuk enjoyed the comforts of a secure job, including the ability to indulge in his passions for cars, clothes, and women. His physical prowess was evident in his rowing achievements with the Leander Boat Club, where he was well-liked and admired for his dedication and congenial nature. Renowned Olympic oarsman Claude Sandy Saunders and retired detective George Lawson both attested to Bohozuk's athletic abilities, nonviolent demeanor, and charm. In 1944, Bohozuk's bachelor lifestyle led him to meet Helen Clean Mitchell, a widow involved in the horse racing circuit. They married shortly after their meeting. However, the marriage was short-lived, as Helen left for Ohio and eventually moved to California, leaving Bohozuk to resume his single life. Shortly after his wife's departure, Bohozuk encountered Evelyn McLean, a widow known to Helen, who expressed interest in him by taking down his car license number. After a brief exchange, Evelyn gave Bohozuk her phone number, though subsequent calls from him remained unanswered. Bohozuk's life, marked by his athletic prowess, work ethic, and social interactions, reflected the experiences of many young men of his time, balancing personal interests with the demands of an industrial city during a global conflict. His encounter with Evelyn McLean hinted at the complex social dynamics and personal connections within the community of Hamilton. In the spring of 1945, Alexandra McLean decided to leave her husband, Donald, marking the final separation in a marriage plagued by abuse and alcoholism. Despite the initial happy days of their marriage in Scotland and their subsequent move to Canada, Donald's transformation into an abusive alcoholic pushed Alexandra to her breaking point. With Evelyn, their daughter, contributing financially, Alexandra no longer depended on Donald's stolen income from his job at the Hamilton Street Railway, HSR. Evelyn had been secretly giving money to her mother, likely obtained for relationships with affluent men. Alexandra, aware of the questionable origins of these funds, chose to move in with Evelyn at her Henson Park apartment, a once private space for Evelyn's romantic encounters. Evelyn, known as Evelyn White after fabricating a story about a deceased naval officer husband, met John Dick, a streetcar driver, in late August 1945. Despite the apparent mismatch, they quickly decided to marry. Evelyn's motive for marrying John might have been to provide a father for her daughter, Heather, and to maintain the facade of her fictional marriage, especially with the war ending. Dominic Police, a former co-worker of John's, was unexpectedly asked to be the best man, indicating that neither John nor Evelyn had close friends. Alexandra, who had high aspirations for her daughter, was strongly opposed to the marriage, leading to a heated argument before the wedding. The wedding on October 4, 1945, was a modest affair at the Church of the Ascension with only a few attendees. Following the ceremony, Evelyn informed John that they couldn't live together immediately due to space constraints in her apartment. That night, Evelyn returned to her apartment to sleep alongside her mother, leaving John to spend their wedding night alone. In the spring of 1945, amidst the backdrop of post-war Hamilton, Ontario, the lives of Evelyn Dick, her family, and acquaintances were enmeshed in a web of complex relationships and turmoil. Evelyn, recently married to John Dick, found herself reigniting an old flame with Bill Bohozuk. She cleverly concealed her marital status from Bohozuk, portraying herself as a widow, thus allowing their relationship to flourish under a guise of deception. This ongoing affair included social outings and borrowing Bohozuk's car, all unbeknownst to John Dick, who was struggling to find his footing in the increasingly troubled marriage. John Dick, emotionally invested in the relationship, hoped for a harmonious union with Evelyn. However, Evelyn maintained a stance of indifference and detachment, underpinned by her financial independence, largely due to her mother Alexandra's savings, which were a result of Donald McLean's embezzlements from the Hamilton Street Railway. The couple's interactions were frequently marred by disputes over money and accusations of infidelity, casting a shadow over their marital life. Meanwhile, Donald McLean, Evelyn's father, continued to exert a negative influence over the family, despite his estrangement. His history of theft and his antagonistic relationship with John Dick contributed significantly to the family's distress. His actions not only affected the domestic sphere but also spilled over into their professional lives, particularly involving the Hamilton Street Railway. Raymond Castle, the superintendent of transportation at HSR, found himself unexpectedly involved in the family's personal conflicts. Dealing with complaints and confrontations involving both McLean and Dick, Castle's role highlights how the family's private matters impacted their public and professional reputations. The narrative took a darker turn with the discovery of a torso on Hamilton Mountain in March 1946. Evelyn's reaction to the news of this grim find was notably nonchalant and evasive, as recounted by Alexandra. This response hinted at her potential awareness or involvement in more sinister aspects of the case, adding a layer of intrigue and mystery to the already complex family saga. On the day before John Dick's torso was discovered on Hamilton Mountain, Raymond Castle, a supervisor at the Hamilton Street Railway, HSR, contacted the Hamilton police to report streetcar operator John Dick missing. Concerned about Dick's whereabouts, Castle approached Donald McLean, Evelyn Dick's father, who also worked at HSR. McLean, visibly alarmed at the prospect of police visiting the Carrick Avenue house, where Evelyn and her family resided, promised to locate Dick himself. That afternoon, McLean informed Castle that Dick could be found at a Gertrude Street address, but upon investigation, Dick's cousin reported that he hadn't seen John since March 6th and was unaware of his current location. Castle then reported John Dick missing to the Ontario Provincial Police, OPP, providing them with the Carrick Avenue address and mentioning relatives in the Beamsville area. Meanwhile, on March 17th, city worker George Mehard, recalling the bloody shirt he and William Rushton had found on Mountain Boulevard 10 days earlier, alerted the Hamilton police. Accompanied by Detective Albert Chenery, they returned to the site and recovered the shirt. On March 18th, Dr. William J. Deadman, a provincial pathologist, conducted a post-mortem examination of the unidentified torso in the presence of OPP Inspector Charles Wood and Hamilton Police Detective Sergeant Clarence Preston. The examination revealed precise details about the victim, including his approximate weight, height, age, and the fair color of his skin. Dr. Deadman noted several gruesome marks of violence, including the severing of the neck, arms, and legs, likely done with a saw. There were also scratches on the torso's back and 2 gunshot wounds near the right nipple. The torso's estimated weight was 125 pounds, and the victim had an undescended right testicle. Deadman concluded that the cause of death could not be determined from the post-mortem but speculated it might have been due to injury to the missing head. He estimated that the victim had died 10 to 14 days earlier. John Wall, John Dick's brother-in-law, was contacted by Evelyn Dick, who inquired about John's whereabouts. During the call, she mentioned that John owed money to various people and that a lawsuit was filed against him. She falsely claimed that John had shares in a canning factory owned by Wall's family. Wall, knowing that neither John nor his mother owned any shares, was angered and confronted Evelyn about misleading John. Wall's daughter Melita informed him that Annie Kammerer, John's cousin, had called earlier, inquiring about John's absence since March 6th. Concerned, John Wall and his brother Jake decided to visit Alex Kammerer in Hamilton. However, before they could leave, John Wall received a late-night call from Kammerer, informing him about the discovery of a body on Hamilton Mountain. The police, suspecting it might be John Dick, had asked Kammerer to accompany them to the morgue the following morning. On March 19th, John and Jake Wall, along with Alex Kammerer, went to the Ontario Provincial Police Station to meet with Inspector Woods, Detective Preston, and Dr. Deadman. They then proceeded to the city morgue to view the torso that had been found on Hamilton Mountain. John Wall immediately recognized the torso as that of his brother-in-law, John Dick, despite the missing head and limbs. Jake Wall, unable to bear the sight, quickly left the room. This identification was a significant development for the investigation led by Charlie Wood and Clarence Preston. Based on conversations with Kammerer and the Wall brothers, they learned about John Dick's troubled relationship with his wife, Evelyn, and her family, directing their investigation towards the Dick household. Later that day, Wood, Preston, and other OPP officers arrived at Evelyn Dick's house on Carrick Avenue with a search warrant. They found Evelyn, her parents, and her daughter having lunch. When informed by Wood that the torso found on the mountain was identified as her husband, Evelyn showed no emotional reaction and denied knowing anything about it. Wood asked her to come to the police station for questioning, and Evelyn's father, Donald McLean, expressed his wish to accompany her. Meanwhile, OPP officers Farrow and Maddock remained at the house to conduct the search. They found a conductor's ticket punch in a fur coat in the main floor closet, which Alexandra McLean claimed as hers. In the attic, they discovered a streetcar conductor's money changer and a tin box containing $43.75 worth of unused streetcar tickets in a trunk, as well as 2 bank books in Evelyn's name, one with a balance of $720 and the other with $10,128. A snapshot of Bill Bohozuk was also found in Evelyn's purse. At the police headquarters, Evelyn Dick was questioned in a small interview room by Inspector Charlie Wood, with the conversation being recorded in his notebook. Wood asked her about her driving activities, her relationship with her husband John Dick, and about borrowing Bill Landig's car. Evelyn claimed she had last driven a car on March 4, 1946, and denied any recent driving. She described the relationship between her husband and her father as unfriendly, but improving after her separation from John. Evelyn also recounted an incident involving a Ukrainian woman, Anna Wolski, who had approached her under the pretense of renting an apartment, but was actually involved with John. Additionally, a well-dressed Italian man had visited Evelyn, accusing John of having an affair with his wife. Evelyn mentioned that she had seen John at the Astor Hotel on March 4th, and he had rudely dismissed her. Once court reporter William David Torrey and Detective Clarence Preston arrived, Wood informed Evelyn she was being detained in connection with her husband's death. Evelyn gave a detailed account of her involvement, claiming she was coerced by a gang to transport part of John's body in a car. She described how a man placed a heavy sack in her car, which she later learned contained part of John's body, and instructed her to drive to Hamilton Mountain. There, the man allegedly removed the sack and disposed of the torso. Evelyn's story raised suspicion, as she claimed ignorance about the dismemberment and insisted she was fearful of the gang's retribution. Despite her chain smoking throughout the interview, Evelyn remained composed. The police then impounded Bill Landig's Packard and collected various items from Evelyn's house. They also found a .32 caliber revolver at Donald McLean's residence. Later, Evelyn accompanied the police to Hamilton Mountain, pointing out where she claimed the gangster had thrown out parts of John's body and his belongings. However, her accounts appeared inconsistent, and she was charged with vagrancy to hold her while the investigation continued. Evelyn was arraigned before Magistrate Henry A. Burbage, where bail was denied due to the severity of the allegations. She was remanded for 1 week and taken to Barton Street Jail, leaving many unanswered questions about her involvement in John Dick's death. On March 21st, a day after Evelyn Dick's arraignment, police, including officers Wood, Preston, Farrow, and Maddock, visited the house of Bill Bohozuk. There, they seized a .32 caliber Iver Johnson revolver that Bohozuk had purchased from his friend Robert Fonger. The gun, still registered in Fonger's name, had not been fired for some time according to forensic tests. Police also found photographs of Bohozuk and Evelyn Dick at his residence. Bohozuk was then taken in for questioning at the police station, where Evelyn was also present to sign her statement from the previous day. Evelyn asked Detective Sergeant Preston if she could add to her statement after learning that Bohozuk had been brought in. In a subsequent interview, with court reporter Douglas Ewing present, Evelyn elaborated on her previous account. She claimed Bohozuk detested her husband and had discussed plans to harm him. Evelyn stated that she had lent Bohozuk $200 as a down payment for the job on her husband, believing it to be a loan rather than a payment for murder. She recounted a complex story involving gangsters, including a man named Tony Romanelli, whom she claimed had forced her to assist in disposing of John Dick's torso. Evelyn described a scenario where Romanelli and an accomplice met John at a hotel, consumed alcohol, and then drove to a remote area. There, according to her, Romanelli shot John and later dismembered his body. She also suggested that the dismembered parts were burned in a furnace in Hamilton's North End. During this time, lawyer Francis John Evans, representing Bill Bohozuk, arrived at the station. He was also asked by Evelyn's lawyer, Orville Walsh, to advise her not to sign any statements. However, Detective Preston managed to stall Evans, ensuring Evelyn signed her statement before seeing her lawyer. Evans, realizing he had been misled, was frustrated by the police tactics. On March 21st, Charlie Wood and Clarence Preston visited Evelyn Dick's house on Carrick Avenue. Alexandra McLean was alone, and while Wood spoke with her, Preston conducted a thorough search of the house. In the basement, he found a bushel basket and a steel rocker containing ashes, as well as dark stains on the basket that appeared to be blood. They also found what looked like pieces of bone among the ashes. In the garage, Wood discovered a human tooth stump and more bone fragments. The garage also had red stains on its south wall, which were later confirmed by Dr. Deadman as human blood, type O, matching John Dick's blood type. During the search of the attic, a locked suitcase belonging to Evelyn was found. Unable to open it due to a lost key, the lock was pried open, revealing a cement-filled cardboard box with clothing poking out. This suitcase, taken to the police station, contained the partially mummified body of a newborn baby, wrapped in a shopping bag in a brown skirt with Evelyn Dick's name on it. The next day, police conducted further searches at both Evelyn's and Donald McLean's houses. In Donald's attic, they found more evidence, including thousands of stolen streetcar tickets and over $4,000 in cash. In the cellar, they discovered shoes belonging to John Dick with suspected bloodstains, a butcher knife, and a saw. The police also found keys to open any HSR fare box and a copy of famous detective stories from 1944, which contained a story eerily similar to the dismemberment of John Dick's body. On March 21st, while continuing their investigation into John Dick's murder, the police made startling discoveries at both Evelyn Dick's and her father Donald McLean's residences. In Evelyn's house, they found a suitcase containing the cement-encased body of a newborn baby. This led to a significant shift in the investigation, revealing a much darker aspect of the case. At Donald McLean's house, the police uncovered over $4,800 in cash and more than 26,000 stolen bus and streetcar tickets. McLean was arrested and charged with theft. His arrest and the discovery of significant amounts of money and tickets added another layer to the already complex case. Back at the police station, Evelyn Dick, still under arrest for vagrancy, was questioned further by the police. She provided a detailed account of her interactions with Bill Bohozuk, including their sexual relationship and Bohozuk's alleged involvement in John Dick's murder. She claimed that Bohozuk had hired a gang to kill her husband and that she had unwittingly become involved in the disposal of his body. Her story, however, was riddled with inconsistencies and seemed tailored to fit the evidence as it was uncovered by the police. Evelyn's narrative was filled with elements straight out of crime novels, including descriptions of gangsters and violent acts. She mentioned an Italian gangster, Tony Romanelli, and described how he and another man had allegedly murdered her husband. She also confessed to encasing her newborn baby, fathered by Bohozuk, in cement and storing the body in her attic. As the police continued to unravel the truth, the media's interest in the case grew, with the Toronto Daily Star reporting on Evelyn's demeanor and the appointment of her new lawyer, Walter Tuchty. The complex and shocking nature of the case, involving murder, betrayal, and hidden secrets, captivated the public's attention. The day ended with the burial of John Dick, marked by a somber funeral service attended by his grieving family. On March 23, Dr. William Deadman examined Bill Landeg's 1938 Packard, previously owned by Evelyn Dick, at the Hamilton Central Police Station. He found several bloodstains in the car, including on the inside handle of the left rear door, the front seat, and on one of the outboard motors, all of which were identified as human blood, type O, matching John Dick's blood type. Additionally, a blood-stained necktie, also type O, was found in the back seat of the car. The same day, Donald McLean, Evelyn's father, appeared in court charged with theft from the Hamilton Street Railway. Represented by Walter Tuchty, McLean was remanded on bail set at $2,000, a portion of which was covered using the funds seized by the police during their investigation. Later, McLean made a donation to the Red Cross, becoming an official member of the society. On March 25, the story of the dead baby found encased in cement in Evelyn's attic was unintentionally leaked to Jocko Thomas of the Toronto Daily Star by Toronto detective Art Key. Thomas, fearing he had been scooped by other newspapers, quickly verified the information with Deputy Attorney General Cecil Snyder. He learned not only about the baby but also about bone fragments found in the ashes at Evelyn Dick's home, presumably the remains of John Dick. This scoop allowed the Star to publish the sensational story, which overshadowed other major news, including the trial of Fred Rose, a Soviet spy exposed by Igor Gouzenko. On March 26, Hamilton detective John Freeborn, accompanied by OPP officers, conducted a thorough search of Donald McLean's house at 214 Rosslyn Avenue using a powerful searchlight. They discovered evidence of a bullet having been fired in the cellar, including a spent .32 caliber bullet and a trajectory through a cold air pipe from the furnace and a large wooden box. This bullet seemed to have ricocheted off the cement floor, hitting a nail in a wooden doghouse, but was not found. The following day, on March 27, Evelyn Dick, still in custody, was formally charged by Charlie Wood with the murder of her husband, John Dick. During the interview at the Central Police Station, Evelyn was asked about the truthfulness of her previous statements. She indicated that only the last statement was true, and she was advised by her lawyer, W.J. Tuchty, to remain silent about the details. When asked if the charges would also be laid against Bill Bohozuk, Evelyn inquired, showing her concern about his involvement. The case had attracted significant public interest, leading to large crowds gathering outside the magistrate's courtroom in anticipation of Evelyn's appearance. The police had to manage the crowds and maintain order due to the high level of public intrigue and media attention surrounding the case. The sensational nature of the case, involving a beautiful young widow accused of a gruesome murder, had captivated the public's imagination. On March 28, a day after Evelyn Dick's court appearance, Bill Bohozuk confidently entered the same courtroom for his hearing. The sturdy oarsman and steelworker was charged with vagrancy and possession of an unregistered revolver, specifically the .32 caliber Iver Johnson revolver he had bought from Robert Fonger. Bohozuk, showing no signs of nervousness, interacted comfortably with his counsel, William Schreiber. The magistrate, James McKay, adjourned Bohozuk's case for a week, hinting that he might appear in court again soon due to the ongoing investigation. Schreiber did not request bail for Bohozuk but indicated he might object to the adjournment next week. Meanwhile, the investigation into the John Dick murder case was still active. Detectives Charlie Wood and Clarence Preston were engaged in forensic examinations, delivering bone fragments to Dr. Charles B. Grant at the University of Toronto for analysis. Grant noted that the fragments, showing signs of burning and damage, were clearly human and belonged to various parts of a single human body. Dr. Roy G. Ellis, a dentistry professor, examined teeth found among the ashes and confirmed they were human. These findings were critical in piecing together the evidence of the case. Back in Hamilton, James Waterston, a local carpenter, recounted his experience working at 32 Carrick Avenue, the residence of Evelyn Dick, just days before the discovery of John Dick's torso. He had been hired by Donald McLean, Evelyn's father, for some carpentry and painting work, unaware of the sinister events that had taken place there. The investigators met with Deputy Attorney General Cecil L. Snyder and Hamilton Crown Attorney Harvey McCulloch at Queen's Park in Toronto. The outcome of this meeting was a consensus to charge Bill Bohozuk and jointly charge both Bohozuk and Evelyn Dick with the murder of the baby found encased in cement. On March 29th, Bill Bohozuk's lawyer, William Schreiber, was relieved when vagrancy charges against Bohozuk were dropped, but this relief was short-lived as they were replaced with murder charges. Bohozuk and Evelyn Dick, each transported separately from the Barton Street Jail, appeared in Magistrate Burbage's courtroom. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation, as reporters and spectators jostled to witness the proceedings. Evelyn's entrance into the courtroom was marked by a noticeable shift in demeanor from her previous appearances. She appeared pale and visibly nervous, a contrast to her earlier composed state. Throughout the proceeding, she remained largely silent, with her focus directed downwards, avoiding any eye contact with either the magistrate or the audience. Bohozuk, on the other hand, displayed a more confident demeanor, engaging in conversation with his counsel and acknowledging acquaintances in the courtroom. However, like Evelyn, he refrained from making any eye contact with her during the session. Both Evelyn and Bohozuk were charged with the murder of Evelyn's newborn child and jointly for the murder of John Dick. They were remanded in custody until April 24th for a preliminary hearing, after which they were taken back to jail. Meanwhile, investigative efforts continued. Detective Sergeant Clarence Preston received a message on April 12th that Evelyn wanted to see him at the jail. During their meeting, Evelyn implicated her father in the crime, claiming he had loaned Bohozuk a gun to murder John Dick. She also detailed her participation in the murder and disposal of John Dick's body, which included burning body parts at various locations. Evelyn's narrative, however, raised questions about its veracity. Her accounts were inconsistent with the evidence gathered, and she struggled to maintain a cohesive narrative. Despite initially agreeing to provide a written statement, Evelyn ultimately chose not to, following advice from her legal counsel. This decision left investigators without a written confession, and Evelyn was returned to jail. On April 13th, following their meeting with the Deputy Attorney General in Toronto, police decided to arrest Donald and Alexandra McLean. The couple, who had reconciled and were in the process of moving furniture, were arrested on vagrancy charges and held over the weekend until their arraignment on Monday. Both denied any knowledge of the murder and were represented by Walter Tuckty. Their daughter, Heather, aged 4, was placed in temporary foster care under the supervision of the Children's Aid Society. Officer Muriel Oliver from the Hamilton Police Morality Department noted that Heather seemed unaware of the gravity of the situation and was content to go for a car ride to her new home. On April 15th, the vagrancy charges against the McLeans were dropped, and the murder charge against Evelyn Dick and Bill Bohozuk was amended to include them. In court, Donald McLean appeared glum and disheveled, contrasting with his wife, who seemed more composed. The McLeans, after a brief appearance, were held in custody until the April 24 preliminary hearing, where all four accused would appear together. On April 24, more than 100 spectators gathered early in the morning at the Central Police Station, eager to attend the preliminary hearing of the torso murder and baby in cement cases. The courtroom, however, could only accommodate a small fraction of the crowd. Many were there mainly to catch a glimpse of Evelyn Dick, who had become notorious by then. Evelyn Dick and her mother were escorted to the court in a police cruiser, while Donald McLean and William Bohozuk were transported in a police van. Magistrate H.A. Burbage emphasized that no photographs were to be taken in the courtroom, especially noting the presence of American newsmen. The hearing began with the charges against Bohozuk and Evelyn for the murder of the infant. Detective Freeborn testified about discovering the baby encased in cement. Doctors from Mountain General Hospital confirmed Evelyn had given birth to a healthy boy in 1944, and Dr. Deadman suggested the baby likely died soon after leaving the hospital. A significant part of the hearing was held in camera, excluding the public and press, to discuss confessions and testimony by one accused against the other. Evelyn initially refused to testify against Bohozuk, but did so after being warned of contempt of court. She claimed Bohozuk was the father of the dead baby and that he had killed it. Bohozuk's lawyer, William Schreiber, attempted to discredit Evelyn by questioning her about her sexual history and relationships with various men, including prominent Hamilton individuals. Evelyn denied that her father, Donald McLean, could be the father of the murdered infant. Her list of lovers, revealed in court, was never publicly recorded, but it contained names of judges, lawyers, politicians, and even a judge's son. This list, often referred to as the Little Black Book, was a subject of much controversy and was allegedly suppressed. In the end, Magistrate Burbage ruled that Bohozuk must stand trial with Evelyn for the murder of her infant son. Schreiber protested, arguing that there was no evidence against Bohozuk other than Evelyn's testimony, which he found improbable and impossible. Magistrate H.A. Burbage's decision to proceed with the trial was met with resistance from Bill Bohozuk's lawyer, William Schreiber. Despite Schreiber's objections, Burbage insisted there was direct evidence for a jury to consider. Bohozuk, initially carefree, appeared pale and shaken after the hearing, proclaiming his innocence and suggesting a lie detector or truth serum test to prove it. The court session continued with the murder charges in the John Dick case, involving Donald and Alexandra McLean alongside Evelyn Dick and Bohozuk. Over 20 witnesses testified, presenting a comprehensive narrative of John Dick's final hours, the discovery of his torso, the actions and relationships of Evelyn Dick, and the evidence found at the Carrick and Roslyn Avenue addresses. This testimony included details about charred teeth and bones and McLean's theft from the HSR. Anna Wolski, who had proposed marriage to John Dick, testified about his worried demeanor and her assistance in spying on his wife. Police Constable Leonard Maddox's testimony about blood-stained buttons found in Evelyn's bedroom further implicated her in the crime. The case had an in-camera session where Evelyn, initially reluctant, testified against Bohozuk under threat of contempt. She stuck to her story that Bohozuk had killed her husband, and her multiple, sometimes contradictory statements were recorded. Eventually, Burbage ordered William Bohozuk, Donald McLean, and Evelyn Dick to stand trial for John Dick's murder. However, in a surprising twist, Alexandra McLean was not charged with the murder but held as a material witness. She was released on a $4,000 bond, showing a rare emotional response, crying uncontrollably, a stark contrast to her usual composed demeanor. The Hamilton torso murder case became a sensational news story in the post-war years, capturing the attention of both Canadian and American media. Evelyn Dick emerged as a central figure, her allure and the gruesome nature of the crimes drawing public fascination. The case became a topic of widespread discussion, with even schoolchildren creating rhymes about the murder. In the midst of the investigation and preliminary hearings, the involvement of Evelyn's parents, Donald and Alexandra McLean, added another layer to the story. Despite the seriousness of the charges, the public remained captivated by the scandalous details and the enigmatic figure of Evelyn Dick. The case briefly lost the spotlight to a significant labor movement event, the strike against the Steel Company of Canada, Stelco, which symbolized a historic shift in labor management dynamics. The strike, involving demands for better working conditions and union recognition, dominated headlines for a time. However, the Torso murder case soon regained public attention, especially as the grand jury confirmed charges against Evelyn Dick, Donald McLean, and William Bohozuk, setting the stage for their trial. The trial was scheduled to begin shortly after the resolution of the Stelco strike, ensuring that the case would once again be at the forefront of public discourse. The trial commenced on Monday, September 23rd, amid intense media attention. Crowds swelled outside the Grand Greystone Courthouse, drawing in thousands. George Lawson, a retired Hamilton policeman, recalled unprecedented lineups, attributing the public interest to Evelyn's beauty and magnetic personality. Jocko Thomas, a reporter, described the trial as the most dramatic and sensational he had covered, filled with intrigue, rumor, and scandal. Evelyn, convinced her initial lawyer was more invested in her father's interests, hired John Sullivan for her defense. Sullivan, a charismatic figure with a reputation for enjoying the spotlight, saw representing Evelyn as a significant opportunity. Evelyn was brought to the courthouse from Barton Street Jail, drawing instant crowds. Dining with her lawyer and Sheriff A.C. Caldwell, she appreciated a break from jail food. When she emerged from the courthouse, she was greeted with applause and cheers, an unusual reaction for someone in her position. The grand jury, after hearing over 24 witnesses, indicted Evelyn Dick and William Bohozuk for the murders of John Dick and Evelyn's infant son. Donald McLean would be tried with them for Dick's murder. The trial, held before Mr. Justice F.H. Barlow, was a major event, with Timothy J. Rigney of Kingston as the special prosecutor. Rigney was known for handling high-profile cases and had a reputation for being a sharp, dapper prosecutor. The case against Evelyn was not straightforward, with layers of complexity involving her family dynamics, her social connections, and her interactions with law enforcement. As the trial progressed, Evelyn's demeanor was noteworthy. She appeared disinterested in the proceedings, except when interacting with her counsel. The jury selection process was strategic, with Sullivan aiming for sympathetic jurors. Evelyn's trial brought to light various facets of her personality and life, painting a picture of a woman who navigated different social strata. Her lawyer's son later recalled that Evelyn was known for her sociability and attractiveness, touching all elements of society. Despite the challenges, Sullivan's defense focused on painting Evelyn as a victim of circumstances, a young woman caught in a whirlwind of events beyond her control. In the courtroom, spectators anxiously awaited the verdict in Evelyn Dick's trial. They had been deeply engaged in the proceedings, listening intently to the arguments from both sides and the judge's instructions. The atmosphere was tense, with people debating Evelyn's guilt or innocence and discussing the lawyer's performances and the judge's demeanor. Evelyn waited in a nearby room with Sheriff's Constable Tom Rouse and jail matron Alice Hickmott. Despite the gravity of her situation, her mood seemed to have improved, and she was seen smoking and occasionally laughing. As the jury was ready to deliver its verdict, the courtroom quickly filled up again. Evelyn, dressed in her black dress and beige coat, entered the courtroom, chatting and smiling with her lawyer, John Sullivan. The room fell silent as the jury was called in, and the judge warned against any demonstrations. The jury, having deliberated for less than 2 hours, found Evelyn guilty of murder but recommended mercy. Evelyn, upon hearing her sentence, requested an appeal. Judge Barlow then sentenced her to death, to be carried out on January 7, 1947. Despite the gravity of the sentence, Evelyn maintained her composure. The courtroom reacted with gasps as the verdict and sentence were delivered. Evelyn, escorted by officers, exited the courtroom with a strained smile, her composure unbroken even in such a dire moment. Outside the courthouse, the news of her guilt and sentencing spread quickly, causing a stir among the gathered crowd. Evelyn was escorted to a police cruiser amid flashing cameras and mixed reactions from the public. Evelyn's mother, Alexandra McLean, was not present in the courtroom but was deeply affected by her daughter's conviction. In an interview, she expressed her profound grief and loneliness, having lost her husband and now facing the loss of her daughter. McLean shared a letter from Evelyn, highlighting her lack of comprehension of the severity of her situation. The letter was a poignant reminder of the personal tragedy behind the public spectacle of the trial. The news of Evelyn Dick's conviction and death sentence reached the Mennonite communities in Vineland and Beamsville, where reactions were mixed. John Dick's mother wept, while his brother-in-law, John Wall, expressed a more forgiving stance, emphasizing the Christian ethos of hating the sin but not the sinner, and praying for the souls involved. Wall acknowledged the legality of capital punishment but did not personally advocate for it. The case gained international attention, being covered by major publications like Time and Newsweek in the US, and receiving prominent attention in British newspapers. The combination of the gruesome details, Evelyn's beauty, and her doomed fate captivated audiences. Evelyn was confined to a death cell at Barton Street Jail, under constant surveillance. Meanwhile, her mother, Alexandra McLean, faced social isolation and harassment, receiving threatening calls for testifying against her daughter. People questioned her morality and loyalty to her daughter, unable to understand her decision to tell the truth in court. The case continued with the trials of William Bohozuk and Donald McLean, charged with the same offense as Evelyn. The public's interest remained high, with spectators eager to follow the proceedings. The new trial, however, was marked by difficulties, including Evelyn's refusal to testify, which led to significant delays and legal complications. Evelyn's refusal to testify complicated the case against Bohozuk and McLean. The Crown requested to discharge the jury and postpone the trial, arguing that Evelyn's testimony was crucial but currently unavailable. This decision was met with objections from the defense lawyers, who argued that it subjected their clients to double jeopardy. Evelyn's appeal was filed, and her execution was postponed to allow for the appeal process. During her time in prison, she underwent a transformation, engaging in more intellectual pursuits and securing a new lawyer, J.J. Robinette, for her appeal. Robinette argued that the police had mishandled the case and that Evelyn's statements to the police were inadmissible. The appeal process revealed significant legal issues regarding police procedures and the admissibility of evidence. The appeal raised questions about the legality of Evelyn's detention and the voluntariness of her statements to police, leading to a debate over police powers and citizens' rights. The justices showed skepticism towards the Crown's arguments and seemed inclined towards Robinette's arguments, leading him to seek an outright acquittal for Evelyn, with a new trial as a secondary option. The appeal of Evelyn Dick's case brought forth significant legal discussions and revelations. Deputy Attorney General Cecil Snyder, during the appeal, admitted that without Evelyn's statements, which he believed were improperly admitted, there was insufficient circumstantial evidence to support a conviction. This admission was a striking turn in the appeal process, indicating doubts about the strength of the case against Evelyn without her controversial statements. Justice Laidlaw expressed his skepticism, questioning whether there was truly insufficient circumstantial evidence. Despite Snyder's admission, he maintained that the circumstantial evidence still could support a guilty verdict. Justice Aylesworth also expressed doubt about dismissing the circumstantial evidence entirely. Chief Justice Robertson and Justice Henderson highlighted the distinct functions of a jury and an appeal court, emphasizing that the appeal court was not bound by Snyder's admission. They criticized the prosecution for relying heavily on Evelyn's statements while overlooking other aspects of the case. Snyder argued that overturning the verdict would be an unwarranted interference with the administration of justice. However, Special Prosecutor Rigney disagreed with Snyder, believing that the trial could proceed without Evelyn's statements, although he maintained that her statements were voluntary. Robinette's representation in the appeal was described as a masterful performance in persuasion. He effectively argued for the inadmissibility of Evelyn's statements and highlighted errors in the trial judge's charge to the jury. Ultimately, the Court of Appeal unanimously set aside Evelyn Dick's conviction and directed a new trial. Chief Justice Robertson, in his written decision, stated that there was no clear motive for Evelyn to murder John Dick and criticized the introduction of irrelevant evidence. He also disagreed with Snyder's view on the circumstantial evidence, stating that the court must form its own opinion. The Supreme Court of Canada refused to hear an appeal from the Ontario Attorney General's Department, finalizing the decision for a new trial. This outcome was a significant victory for Robinette and marked an important moment in his career. Evelyn Dick's new trial date was set, and Robinette agreed to represent her, continuing his involvement in this high-profile case. The second trial of Evelyn Dick revealed a complex narrative, with the defense led by J.J. Robinette meticulously challenging the credibility of key witnesses brought forward by the Crown. The Crown's strategy included attempting to reintroduce previously inadmissible statements and introducing new witnesses and evidence to strengthen their case. Frank Baller, a new witness, claimed to have seen Evelyn Dick in a car with a portion of a leg in the backseat on the day John Dick was murdered. His detailed testimony initially appeared to be a significant blow to Evelyn's defense. However, Robinette's incisive cross-examination severely undermined Baller's credibility. He revealed inconsistencies in Baller's past, including his spotty work history, issues during his military service, and questionable behavior such as forging checks and a fabricated story about being attacked. These revelations cast serious doubt on Baller's reliability as a witness. The Crown also introduced a second spent bullet found in the garage of the Carrick house, which was linked to Donald McLean's revolver. This evidence, along with Dr. Deadman's testimony about finding bone particles on the bullet, aimed to establish a connection to the murder. However, there was no definitive proof that the bullet was fired in the garage or that the bone particles were human. Alexandra McLean, Evelyn's mother, was another crucial witness. Her testimony in the first trial was pivotal in implicating Evelyn. However, in the second trial, her testimony was less direct. She avoided explicitly stating that Evelyn admitted to killing John Dick, instead conveying a more ambiguous account of their conversation. This shift in testimony, whether intentional or not, offered less incriminating evidence against Evelyn. Throughout the trial, Robinette's defense strategy effectively countered the Crown's attempts to build a case against Evelyn Dick. His approach not only questioned the veracity of the Crown's new evidence and witnesses but also highlighted the lack of direct evidence linking Evelyn to the murder. Chief Justice McRuer, in his charge to the jury, presented a detailed and careful examination of the evidence and arguments presented during the trial. His approach was methodical, addressing key aspects of the case individually, starting with the examination of the evidence as if Frank Baller's testimony did not exist. This approach allowed the jury to consider the evidence's strength without being influenced by Baller's controversial testimony. McRuer highlighted the gruesome nature of the crime, stressing that it was not a fictional or sensational story but a real and horrific act. He pointed out the deliberate nature of the dismemberment and disposal of John Dick's body, emphasizing the calculated planning involved. Regarding Alexandra McLean's testimony, McRuer indicated that he saw no reason to doubt her sincerity. He suggested that the circumstances did not point towards her committing perjury, which would have been particularly heinous given the trial's gravity. The judge also addressed the expert testimony regarding the bones found in the ashes at the Carrick house and garage, affirming their identification as John Dick's remains. He underscored that human bones do not accidentally end up in ashes, highlighting the intentional nature of their placement. The discussion of the gunshot wound to John Dick's chest and the subsequent finding of the bullet fired from Donald McLean's gun was also critical. McRuer pointed out the timing of the gun's recovery and its condition, questioning whether a guilty person would leave such evidence readily available. Throughout his charge, McRuer's approach was to dissect the evidence logically and impartially, guiding the jury in their deliberation without overtly swaying them towards a particular verdict. His focus was on ensuring that the jury considered all evidence and testimonies carefully and in context, aware of the trial's high stakes and public interest. The conclusion of Evelyn Dick's second trial was a dramatic and intense moment, as depicted by the various reports and accounts. The jury's verdict of not guilty came after careful deliberation, influenced by Chief Justice McRuer's balanced and comprehensive charge, J.J. Robinette's persuasive defense, and the scrutinization of key testimonies like that of Frank Baller and Alexandra McLean. McRuer's charge to the jury was pivotal. He meticulously dissected the evidence, highlighting the importance of discerning Evelyn Dick's actual role in the crime. His analysis of Baller's testimony, acknowledging its weaknesses, and the consideration of Alexandra McLean's motives were crucial in guiding the jury's decision-making process. The jury's decision was met with mixed reactions, indicating the case's emotional and sensational nature. Evelyn Dick's reaction, shifting from anxiety to relief and joy, was a stark contrast to the sober acknowledgement by the prosecution and the satisfaction of Robinette, who saw this as a significant professional achievement. The media coverage played a critical role in shaping public perception, with the radio being a primary source of immediate updates. The case's conclusion on the anniversary of John Dick's murder added a poignant note to the already dramatic proceedings. The aftermath of the trial reflected a mix of relief, celebration, and continued speculation. Evelyn Dick's departure from the courthouse amidst a mixed crowd reaction underscored the public's divided opinion. The victory was a defining moment in Robinette's career, elevating his status in the legal community. For Alexandra McLean, the verdict brought a sense of relief, tempered by the complexities and emotional weight of the case. The period leading up to Evelyn Dick's fourth trial was marked by significant developments, both inside and outside the courtroom. Bill Bohozuk and Donald McLean, who had been confined in the antiquated Barton Street jail alongside Dick, faced their own set of challenges and anxieties. Bohozuk, a top-flight oarsman, missed his athletic pursuits, while McLean, a heavy drinker, likely struggled with alcohol withdrawal. The Crown's repeated requests for adjournments and the delays in proceeding with the trials of Bohozuk and McLean led to mounting frustration among their defense attorneys. Eventually, both men were released on bail, a decision that brought a sense of temporary relief. However, the Crown's filing of an appeal against Evelyn Dick's not guilty verdict for the murder of her husband, John Dick, indicated ongoing legal battles. Evelyn Dick's trial for the murder of her baby, Peter David White, was a critical juncture. Her defense lawyer, J.J. Robinette, faced a challenging task, as the evidence against Dick in this case was more direct and damning. The presence of the baby's body encased in cement in her attic was a grim and undeniable fact that significantly complicated her defense. Joan Sadler, Robinette's daughter, reflected on the complexities of the case and her father's approach. She believed that while Dick might have been acquitted of her husband's murder, the evidence regarding her baby's death was far more incriminating. Sadler also offered insights into the dynamics of the Dick family, suggesting a troubled and dominated life for Evelyn, marked by fear and manipulation. Jocko Thomas, a reporter who covered the case, echoed these sentiments, asserting the likelihood of Dick's guilt in the death of her baby. The discovery of the baby's body, the oddity of its concealment, and the lack of a plausible explanation pointed towards her involvement. As the trial commenced, the tension and seriousness of the situation were palpable. The appearance of the suitcase with the baby's remains and the presence of Bohozuk and McLean, now unshackled, added to the gravity of the proceedings. Crown Prosecutor Timothy Rigney presented a narrative that centered on the disappearance of the baby shortly after birth and the eventual discovery of the remains encased in cement. The testimony of Evelyn's mother, Alexandra McLean, played a crucial role in establishing the timeline and circumstances surrounding the baby's birth and subsequent disappearance. The defense, led by J.J. Robinette, faced the challenging task of countering the Crown's evidence and narrative. Robinette's strategy involved questioning the credibility of the Crown's witnesses and suggesting alternative theories for the baby's death, including the possibility of natural causes or involvement by others. He emphasized Evelyn's lack of motive for murder and portrayed her as a loving mother to her first child, Heather. Robinette also sought to mitigate Evelyn's guilt by suggesting she was a victim of her circumstances, including a troubled home life and the pressures of societal norms. The jury's verdict of guilty of manslaughter, rather than murder, was a significant outcome, reflecting the jury's belief that Evelyn was responsible for her baby's death but without the premeditation or malice required for a murder conviction. The sentence of life imprisonment imposed by Justice LaBelle underscored the gravity of the crime. The trial of Bill Bohozuk for the murder of Peter David White, the infant son of Evelyn Dick, was a pivotal moment in this complex legal saga. Dressed sharply and supported by his family, Bohozuk entered the trial facing significant allegations, largely based on statements made by Evelyn Dick. Alexandra McLean, Evelyn Dick's mother, was a key witness for the Crown. Her testimony focused on Evelyn's behaviors and financial circumstances, particularly around the time of Heather's birth, Evelyn's first child. However, she stated she had never met Bohozuk but had spoken to him on the phone and seen his picture. Evelyn Dick was called to testify but refused to be sworn in. This refusal was a significant turning point in the trial. Her previous statements, which were central to the Crown's case against Bohozuk, were now in question due to her refusal to testify under oath. Bill Bohozuk took the stand in his defense, vehemently denying involvement in the baby's death. He recounted his limited interactions with Evelyn Dick, insisting that his relationship with her was brief and that he had no role in the murder. G. Arthur Martin, Bohozuk's counsel, argued strongly against the reliability of Evelyn Dick's statements, suggesting she had every motive to lie to deflect guilt from herself. He challenged the jury to question the credibility of Evelyn's accusations, especially given her history of dishonesty. The Crown prosecutor, Timothy Rigney, appeared to have lost confidence in the case, given Evelyn's refusal to testify and the lack of corroborating evidence. Justice LaBelle, acknowledging these challenges, directed the jury towards an immediate acquittal of Bohozuk. The judge's remarks to Bohozuk at the end of the trial highlighted the cautionary tale of his association with Evelyn Dick, emphasizing the societal belief in the moral implications of one's company. Bohozuk's acquittal was a relief to him and his supporters, bringing to an end his year-long ordeal entangled in the Evelyn Dick case. Donald McLean's trial for the murder of John Dick marked the final chapter in a series of legal proceedings that had captured the public's attention. However, the trial took an unexpected turn. Despite the collection of incriminating items found at his Rosslyn Avenue home, the Crown lacked direct evidence linking McLean to the actual murder of John Dick. This lack of concrete evidence against McLean for the murder charge led to a significant development in the case. In a turn of events, an agreement was reached between the defense and the prosecution. The Crown ceased presenting further evidence against McLean in the murder charge, leading Justice LaBelle to instruct the jury to acquit him due to insufficient evidence. Following this acquittal, McLean faced a new charge of being an accessory after the fact to the murder. Before sentencing for this new charge, the court was informed about McLean's deteriorating physical and mental health by a doctor. Taking these factors into consideration, Justice LaBelle sentenced McLean to 5 years in prison. Additionally, he received a concurrent 5-year sentence after being convicted of theft from the Hamilton Street Railway. McLean, then in his 70th year, was sent to Kingston Penitentiary to serve his sentence. He spent 4 years in prison before being released in 1951. This resolution marked the end of a complex and notorious criminal case that had involved multiple trials, various charges, and several key figures, each with their unique involvement and fate. Evelyn Dick's departure from Hamilton to begin her life sentence at Kingston Penitentiary marked a significant turn in her life. On July 16, 1947, she left behind her cell at Barton Street Jail, expressing relief to be leaving Hamilton. The day prior, her mother and daughter had visited her for a final goodbye. Evelyn had arranged to sell her house for $7,100, with the proceeds designated for her daughter Heather's education and future. Alexandra McLean, Evelyn's mother, shared with reporters that her husband had wept before leaving for Kingston Penitentiary, while Evelyn seemed eager to go. Heather, aware of her mother's long absence to come, was described as bright and understanding of the situation. The news of Evelyn's acquittal in the murder of John Dick came shortly before her transfer, following the Crown's failed appeal. However, her life sentence for the manslaughter of her infant son was upheld, with the Ontario Court of Appeal dismissing Robinette's plea for a reduced sentence. Chief Justice Robert Robertson, in his ruling, pointed to Evelyn's evil mode of life and her disregard for the gruesome nature of her deeds. Evelyn's journey to Kingston was discreet, almost unnoticed, and she was accompanied by a sheriff's officer and a matron. The drive, filled with detours to avoid pursuit, included a stop in Belleville for lunch. Upon arrival at the prison for women, Evelyn was met by a matron, entering the facility without hesitation. Her time in prison was marked by a remarkable adjustment to the penitentiary life. She was described as well-behaved, popular with the matrons, and never caused trouble. Evelyn also engaged in various activities offered by the Elizabeth Fry Society, including art, drama, and letter-writing sessions. Her role in a Christmas program as an angel garnered media attention. Evelyn Dick's intelligence and manipulative traits were noted by those who interacted with her in prison. Despite a psychiatric assessment suggesting she had the mental age of a 13-year-old, many who knew her disagreed, seeing her as intelligent and capable. Her release from the penitentiary came in 1958, after serving almost 13 years in total, including her time at Barton Street Jail. Evelyn's life after prison remained private, and she left behind a legacy of mystery and intrigue. Evelyn Dick's story is a remarkable chapter in Canadian crime history, marked by sensational trials and deep intrigue. Her transformation during her incarceration and eventual release in 1958 added layers of complexity to her narrative. Remaining an enigmatic figure in the annals of true crime, Evelyn's case continues to fascinate and perplex, a testament to the enduring mysteries of human nature and justice. Thank you for joining us through the twists and turns of this harrowing story. Until next time, keep seeking answers in the shadows, and remember, behind every headline lies a lesson waiting to be learned. Don't forget to leave a short comment and hit the like button.